Apparently, we're the problem, according to Collider. And I think it's worth addressing this one because it's actually quite a fascinating article that they've written. I'm sure you guys are quite familiar with it by this point because it's certainly been doing the rounds on social media. But yeah, apparently Star Wars' biggest problem is the fans themselves. So it's kind of a lengthy one. So I'll go through the highlights here. I do like this little bullet point that they put at the beginning. Modern Star Wars projects have expanded the universe with diverse representation, but also they've had to weather the backlash in the process. The future of Star Wars should be focused on representation and inclusivity, overcoming toxic elements in the fandom. Now, call me crazy. I would have thought the future should be focused on telling good stories and fixing the gigantic, nightmarish problems that they created for themselves. I could be wrong.
You would think. This article's kind of crazy. Like the idea that you know what Lucasfilm's biggest problem is? It's just Star Wars fans. You know what the biggest problem for a barber is? People that need to get their hair cut. The biggest problem at a restaurant is the hungry people that walk in. Like that's the same type of illogical bullshit that those statements would be. And you're right. This whole thing, not only in the middle, they're blaming the demographics of the original trilogy on the fact that there wasn't more representation in the OT on why Star Wars fans are toxic now. Somehow it always, for Disney Star Wars defenders, it always comes back to pointing out problems with the original trilogy somehow.
Well, they cover this a little bit. They certainly say here, for decades, viewers have been relentlessly attacking Star Wars performers and creators, with the renewed push against TV shows like The Acolyte demonstrating the venom with which a particular set of audience members scrutinize everyone's favorite galaxy. The vitriol of these persistent voices has subsequently spread throughout the internet, making it impossible to say anything positive about Star Wars without turning every discussion into a heated debate. It's a crazy concept, right? But fans like to passionately argue about things. And if you start claiming that something that they think is shit is actually amazing, they're probably going to push back against you. I know, it's crazy. It is, but bear with me on this one. And this kind of debate is what has been the defining factor with any fandom of anything, because you've got a bunch of people who actually care about things. And it's the attitude here seems to be, why can't you just accept the slop that you're dished up? Why can't you just praise it and consume this product? Why do you have to argue against us? And I think it's fine if you want to be one of those interesting people who really likes Disney Star Wars projects. Cool, but you're probably going to have to justify why you like it because you're not in the majority. Well, and that becomes a problem.
Even the first line of the article, once you get past those bullet points, the first line in the article is retarded. It doesn't make any sense. Quote, the internet has never made it easy for people to speak their minds, period.
What?
The internet literally gave everybody the opportunity to speak their mind and have it be seen by more people than it could ever possibly hope. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not other people that are also speaking their mind that might reply, they might agree, they might disagree. But that entire premise, it comes from this hug box where these people just want to put out their opinion and have it echoed back to them regardless of anything else. And if you go do anything other than follow their narrative, you're part of the problem.
But if we can't speak our minds on the internet, then how are we abusing them all? That's my first question. Surely they've noticed the abuse of all of us speaking our minds, so the internet must have made that quite easy. I thought that was the problem. It's just dumb. They don't really give a damn about the thing they're trying to create. The Collider article goes on, as I think you said in the bullet point, to say that the future for Star Wars has to re-emphasize and recommit to all of these values that have nothing at all to do with the stories we're telling or the characters we're creating or anything like that, because we have to overcome toxic elements in the fandom, as though that's the problem. That's not the problem. Fans were absolutely fine for years, decades even, with a very diverse, expanded universe. People really liked the Clone Wars for some reason, and that's quite diverse. People really liked Ahsoka Tano. She's a diverse character. I mean, she's got orange skin and head tails and everything.
Tentacles, yeah.
She's got everything. No one has a problem with this, even if they're actually quite average and even not brilliant stories. But what we kind of draw the line at is terrible stories that cost loads of money, and then people telling us afterwards that we're racist bigots for not liking them. These people can go to hell.
Well, what's interesting is the retardation actually increases the further you get through the article, because and the gaslighting as well, because they wheel out the inevitable, the unacceptable abuse of Star Wars prequel actors like Ahmed Best received from fans in the late 90s and early 2000s has been well documented. Did he fuck? He received abuse from people like you, Collider, the media. They're the ones who relentlessly mocked him, and they're the ones who like drove him to distraction and to contemplate the worst possible outcome because of people like you. It wasn't the fans. Yeah, they mocked Jar Jar Binks as a character, but they didn't single out the actor for this. So, yeah, wonderful bit of gaslighting there. This is...
And the real gaslighting is Ahmed Best is on the record talking about the abuse he received and talking about how he almost killed himself, but it wasn't because of fans. It was because of the media. It was because the media's attacks on his character. Like the idea that they always try to pin these things on fans is insane. The same thing with Jake Lloyd, the same thing with Kelly Marie Tran, like all of this shit.
It's an insane narrative they draw. They're like that guy, the meme from Always Sunny, right? The Pepe Silva thing. Where like, you see, they abused Kelly Marie Tran, they abused little Anakin and Jar Jar. They've been doing this forever. And you sort of sit there sometimes and be like, how old do you think I am? How much access do you think I have to these people? Like, what the fuck is going on? Why are we always the ones responsible for every horrible thing that ever happens to anybody? Especially when I have never in my whole life ever thought being mean to an actor would ever make a thing better. It's not going to do shit.
Yeah.
I mean, being mean to Mark Ruffalo makes me feel better.
Yeah, but that's not who he is or a performance.
That's got nothing to do with making Marvel better.
That's him choosing to be an absolute cock, which is a whole different situation.
And there are always going to be people that like do associate these people with the characters. Take is it Fabian Franco? Is that his name? The actor who plays Kristen Cole on House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
He had to limit his comment section after. I don't know if it was after the first or second episode when people were like, you're a fucking awful person. Kristen Cole is terrible. You know what I mean? And that show, in large part, it's not there's not like backlash to this show. For the most part, is very positive, but people see him as a villain of the show and are going to his Instagram and calling Kristen Cole out.
Did you see the actor who plays Erectus or whatever from Furiosa?
Oh, God, yeah.
He had a Facebook post saying, I play a character in that movie. I didn't actually do the things he does. And it's like, what? You have to explain that to people?
A lot of people are retarded. What can we say?
Yeah, Mueller, yeah.
It does go on as well. This is kind of an interesting one. Leslie Headland's groundbreaking series has been relentlessly review bombed online, of course, because people aren't allowed to have negative opinions of it, causing The Acolyte to possess a huge disparity between its positive critical reception and abysmal audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, could it be, I'm just going to spitball here, that maybe the critics that gave it such wildly positive reviews are just shameless fucking shills who are bought and paid for, and like the audience score is the more representative of how actual real normal people feel about it? It's a crazy idea, I know.
And I don't understand how anyone can see episode 6 in particular and say, yes, this is a really good show that's worth my time. They're obviously lying. And people who are not paid up to obviously lie to people in comment sections are the ones who are saying, no, actually the show's pretty garbage. Thank you. And we're just telling you as it is.
Yeah. I do love as well, because they inevitably have to go back to the original trilogy and point out that it's not diverse enough for them. They say here, it was a time when Hollywood relied almost exclusively on traditional tropes to tell stories through a Eurocentric, white male lens. Protagonists were almost always played as ultra-masculine tough guys. You know, that famous ultra-masculine tough guy, Luke Skywalker. Yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah.
I recorded a video about this. I said the exact same thing. Because it's like, you could never possibly in your life describe Luke Skywalker as an ultra-masculine tough guy. But there's nothing wrong with the way Luke Skywalker is depicted. But to toss that out there when you're talking about like the hero of Star Wars is crazy.
Also, Lando Calrissian didn't exist in the original trilogy, so just forget him.
Yeah.
Is there any differentiation between ultra-masculine tough guy Arnold Schwarzenegger and ultra-masculine tough guy Luke Skywalker? Because I think there's a bit of a gap.
Well, plus
Yeah, honestly, we should have had John Matrix versus Luke Skywalker in my celebrity deathmatch thing. It would have been
plus the
interesting.
trilogy. Who was voicing Vader? I forgot. James Earl Jones. Not.
Yeah. But it says here supporting casts typically consisted of domestic female characters or problematic stereotypes. Yeah, sure, okay. And as films released during this insulated time period, the Star Wars movies are often construed possessing a similarly narrow narrative focus. It says here it features a mostly white male cast. Female characters were with largely unrealized potential. Really? Princess Leia had unrealized potential.
Mon Mothma?
I mean, she seemed pretty important. But here we get to the crux of the matter. No LGBTQ plus storylines depicted on screen. I mean, for shame. How did cinema exist without storylines like that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Genuinely don't know.
Rancor Keeper, the fact I cried when the Rancor died, that is a queer relationship if I've ever seen one before. It's definitely... That's
and
diverse.
didn't they say R2-D2's a lesbian? So if that's true,
R2's a lesbian. C-3PO is gay. There was a couple of others as well that got thrown into the mix.
I mean, Salacious Crumb is probably a little LGBT guy, I guess.
I think. Salacious Crumb is definitely pansexual. He will fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it says as well, while powerful female leaders like Mon Mothma and Carrie Fisher's Princess Leia are outspoken forces for good in the trilogy, and of course it's never enough, the Leia's relationship with the Force and her father is glossed over in favor of her brother because, he's the main character of the movie. And Leia's infamous bikini scene at Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi feels like fodder for a generation of male fantasies. I mean, I'd like to make 2 points regarding that. One, Carrie Fisher was really fucking hot, so why not do that? And two, she specifically complained to George Lucas about her clothing in the previous 2 movies being really shapeless and unflattering and covering her up. And he did this to almost placate her. So draw your own conclusions there. She seemed pretty happy with it.
Yeah, Carrie Fisher's like, I've been doing lines of cocaine off Harrison Ford's dick for 6 months to get my body ready for this. And you're telling me you're going to put me in another shapeless gown? Bullshit. That's basically what happened, I believe, from the set of Return of the Jedi.
And boy, it paid off, though.
Yeah, all this stuff, right, is just an example of how it's never going to be enough for writers like this. There's always got to be more. There's always got to be another step that they have to take. And, perhaps the reason the original trilogy did so well is, one, it told a timeless story that everyone could relate to. Two, it was well written, well cast, and generally well directed. And three, it favored great storytelling and universal themes over things like modern day representation and the pushing in of present day political agendas. I mean, it's a crazy concept, I know, but this is how we used to make movies. And it worked quite well for probably 50, 60 years. I think it did okay. So I don't know, man. We can compare the success of those films to the success of Star Wars under Disney and just see who came out better, I suppose.
Yeah, Drinker, even the prequels, everyone knows that they had problems, but you still feel like Lucas was telling a story and you weren't being preached to. They have issues, but none of the prequels bombed at the box office neither. They were pretty successful.
Yeah.
But it's annoying when they complain about, say, like the Leia bikini scene, as though it's fodder for a generation of a particular kind of fan. Well, yes, it was, for understandable reasons, because most of the fan base happens to be male, no one actually set out to make it that way. That's just how it naturally skewed. And men generally like to see attractive women in bikinis, but they don't seem to have a problem attempting to do the same thing for what they want their new audience to be in The Acolyte, for example, because you've had Yord getting his shirt off, and Smilo Ren's principle, come to the dark side and join me appeal, is apparently have a look at my dick. And like that's all fine, but are we complaining generally about sexualization, or is it just when women are being sexualized that's not fine? But sexualizing men is absolutely fine.
It's interesting you should mention that, because there is an interesting article from Salon.com, those purveyors of fantastic takes on media, saying that exact same thing. So The Acolyte proved what female fans knew all along: the powerful sex appeal of the dark side. The unveiling of a new Sith Lord is another example of the franchise at its best when told through the female gaze. That is an actual thing that Salon.com wrote. So you literally, the thing that you were mocking there is straight up their take. Now, the male gaze is bad. Appealing to your broadly male fan base is wrong. But appealing to a non-existent theoretical fan base with a female gaze is great. And that's what you should do. So,
that is like
don't you love it?
That is like a thing for fucking women in general. One of the reasons so many of these like fanfic stories involve just like an evil piece of shit, a type of enemies to lovers situation. And a lot of those are written by women. There was one that was written by Ryan Johnson, which is close enough, I suppose. But there are 100% echoes of Kylo Ren and Rey's relationship in what we're seeing on screen with Chimere and Osha.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
And it's happening almost as fast, too. Like with like no real given reason. You just witness this person do horrific shit, and you're all of a sudden ready to fuck him.
I can't believe I'm saying this, though, but at least the sequels sort of gave us a bit of a lead-in because they'd been forced Skyping each other over the course of 2 movies until that point. It still made no sense, but there was something there. They hadn't just met for the first time and decided, yes, that's bone. That's what the Acolyte's called. But the Acolyte is, there's no character work to support it. So I don't mind it as a trope, a narrative trope. You can do it interestingly, but I'd like it to involve 2 characters, not just 2 random people they've thrown on screen because that's the time.